Hi, I'm Debbie Pokornik, and I'm here today to continue my Mother's Day Marathon Month, which is where I provide you with a video gift each day this week to supplement a gift that I have created on my website, which is an online basket of goods. It's you can sign up for it right on my website, empoweringnrg.com. That's three letters, nrg.com. You'll see a heart that says Mother's Day gift. And for the whole month of May, you can go there, click on that link, and it will take you to a sign up, which takes you to a page that has cheat sheets and games and ebooks and all kinds of things to help you as a mom and perhaps make your life just that little bit easier, because we can all use lots of ideas and suggestions and sometimes other perspectives. And I really feel that being a mom is a tough job, and I love sharing whatever information I can with moms that might help make things just that little bit easier for them. So today's show is on the topic of yelling, and specifically why yelling is not a great tool for us to use, why it tends to be a bit of a problem, because, well, there's just lots of things about it that I could say. Now, yesterday, I talked about discipline, and while you don't have to have listened to yesterday's for today's session to make sense, I just want you to know that there I talked about the fact that discipline is a mindset. And so it's not about the tools that you have as much as it is about the way you're trying to raise your kids, the way you're trying to get compliance, whether you're just trying to get them to listen or whether you are trying to guide them and teach them how to make great decisions in life. And so, of course, yelling tends to fall in that category of not super effective, great tools, because it does, well, there's a lot of reasons. And I'm going to share all those with you. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about sibling rivalry and how to use your child's disagreements with their peers, with other kids, to help move them forwards in life and to give them the skills that they're going to need in future years. Because even if you only have one child and sibling rivalry isn't a problem, these are still very important skills for all kids to have. And so you can use them. On Thursday, I'm going to talk about resiliency and specifically why it's so important that your child stays fully connected with their resiliency, their own sense of being able to handle whatever life throws their way, their own knowledge that they became fully equipped to deal with life. And so very important topic, very near and dear to me. And then finally on Friday, I want to talk about bullying, because there is a lot of misconceptions about bullying that are actually harmful. And what is happening is more and more people are reacting poorly when their child or somebody comes to them and tells them about something going on. And you end up having this huge explosion of emotions that isn't helping anybody. It's actually making the situation kind of worse. And so to me, education is one way that we can help people to at least recognize what they're doing and to give them the tips and tools that they can try if they in fact want to be able to support their child if their child comes to them in that situation. So that's the plan for this week. As I already mentioned, you can go to my site, Empowering Energy, and get your Mother's Day gift, which has pieces which supplement everything that I am talking about in these live sessions, which aren't live because the Facebook Live wasn't working for me. So I'm having to record them and then put them up. However, having said that, I would still love your comments, your questions, your suggestions. Put those down. I will see them on the video, and I will definitely respond to them. So yes, I would love for this to be far more interactive, but if things aren't going to work, you got to go with plan B, and here I am doing plan B. So today, we're going to talk about yelling. And you know, I apologize if I'm looking all around. I cannot figure out where on my computer I need to look for it to look like I'm looking at you. And so when I look right at me, apparently it doesn't do it. When I look at the camera, it doesn't do it. So I apologize if that's distracting to you. If you're a real visual person, that could be a problem. And I apologize, but I don't know how to fix it. Probably by Fridays, I might have a good idea and be better at it. So, all right, let's talk about yelling. Yelling is a tool that it's a punishment tool. So it is very accepted in our society as a way to get people to comply, as a way to intimidate people, to get them to hear you, but not just hear you because of the volume, to actually listen to you. That's the idea behind it. And I mentioned already with the discipline punishment talk that this is not the best way to guide your children towards making good decisions. It's a great way to get compliance if you just need them to listen, but it is not a great way to actually teach them the kinds of skills that you want them to retain and have throughout life. And so you really want to reserve those moments when you yell for those moments where yelling is the only thing that's going to work. And, just so that you know, I can remember once I was riding my bike with my kids and I had to stop. There was something going on with my bike, so I had to stop. And my two young children, so they're about 7 and 5 maybe, they're riding up the road ahead of me. And we live in the country, and at each country mile, there's a little intersection, right? And there's a stop sign at ours. And so my kids are going and my dog is running along with them, and I get my bike fixed and I look up and they've gotten way further than I would have thought they could have gotten in that amount of time. They're getting kind of close to the corner and I yelled at them, as in called them to say stop. And they were laughing and joking with each other and they didn't listen to me. And now they're getting close to the intersection and fear just welled up inside of me, because if a big truck or anything comes along, they're going to squish both my kids. And then what? How am I going to explain that one to my husband? Okay, that sounds very callous and I'm not a callous person, but I panicked and I yelled at the top of my lungs with the most authoritative voice I could possibly get. I yelled, "Stop!" And they did. Whew. And then I was able to get up to them and I was able to say, hey guys, you need to stay with mom on the country roads, on any roads. You need to stay with mom. You can't just do that. But I had to yell in that instance. That's the only way that they were going to hear me. So not just for volume, but also to really get their attention. Now, if I was a person who yelled all the time, it's quite possible they still would have ignored me. And so let me talk just quickly about that, why yelling is a problem. First of all, we hear so much yelling around us on the TV, in the schools, as a coach, if you're on a team, when you're watching movies, TVs, even in restaurants, you'll see people yelling at each other. And what happens with that is it desensitizes us to it. It's kind of like listening to really loud music. You slowly have to turn the music up more and more to really hear it, right? And it's that same idea. When you are around people that yell all the time, when people yell as a way to get your attention, you start to tune it out. It no longer grabs your attention. And so that's one of the big problems with yelling so much, is it really does desensitize us to it. It also is a fear-based tool, and that is a problem, because if you're not raising your child to fear you, if you're actually raising your child to stand up for themselves, to question authority, to feel good about who they are, then it's pretty unlikely yelling is going to work. And even just to take that a step further, if they believe that you will follow through on whatever consequence you put in place because you're consistent, all right, then you don't need to yell at them. You do not need to say, your computer is gone for a week, in order to give it strength. What they don't like, what makes them listen, is the idea that you're going to take away their computer. They don't need to fear you for that. They just know that you, in fact, will take away their computer. So if you can teach yourself how to keep your emotions out of the equation and calmly put a consequence in place, computer needs to go off, it's time to go for your bath, and they keep on playing, and you come in and you say, all right, the computer is now unplugged for the rest of the night. And they throw a little fit, and you might say, all right, the computer is gone for tomorrow as well. That might be your way of dealing with it, but you don't have to yell through it. Now, I'm not telling you how to put out consequences here. I haven't thought these up in advance or anything as really great consequences. What I'm doing, I hope, is showing you that it's actually your energy, it's your consistency, it's your follow through that is going to have way more effect on whether or not your kids listen to you. So partly that's because it's a fear-based tool. If you're not raising your kids to fear you, then you're not going to get them to listen to you necessarily by yelling. And so what happens in a lot of families is that you'll tell your kids to do something, they don't listen, so you yell at them to do something, they don't listen, and so you really yell at them. And when you hit a certain note, that's when they go, "Ooh, now I have to listen." It's almost like they have trained you. All right, you got to get to a certain intensity before I need to listen, because the consequence doesn't kick in till you get there. If I listen there, then there's no consequence. If instead you use the calm, cool, consistent approach and your voice isn't changing, and it's simply this: I'm going to ask you, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to take. And you're able to do that all from that place of calm, cool energy, then you're probably going to get a lot more compliance from your kids than you will by yelling. Now, having said that, you're really well trained in yelling. As I said, it's everywhere in our society. And even if you don't like it, you might find yourself sometimes using it, and then you might find yourself getting really upset at yourself for using it. Partly that's because you have an idea of the kind of parent you want to be. And when you're doing things like yelling, if you've promised yourself you're not going to yell, now you can feel like I'm not measuring up to my own standards. I'm not aligning with my own parenting goals. And so my goal is to give you a lot of tips and ideas and suggestions that you can put into practice so you don't use the yelling tool as often, but understand that if it was used on you at all in your own upbringing as a way to get you to comply, it's in your toolbox, in that parenting pack. And it's going to jump into your hand and have a sense of familiarity. And when you're really upset, a certain level of emotion is aroused, it's going to feel like the right tool to use. So don't come down on yourself when that happens. If you can, notice it. If it feels safe to do so, if you're the kind of person that doesn't yell very often, but when you do, it's pretty intense, maybe you can have your kids or your partner or your friend kind of be the one to give you a signal. You know, that when I'm getting really angry and you notice I'm getting ready to yell, or I'm starting to look like I'm going to yell, maybe just hold your finger up. And if I yell, if I hit the roof, then just don't do anything, because in that moment I'm so emotionally upset that I'm having trouble with self-control. I'm learning how to control myself, right? But when I see your finger, if that can be enough to prompt me, to make me go, whoa, I'm losing it. And then I can put my own tools into place that help me get control, like focusing on the bottom of my feet is a way to go out of fight mode and back into my body, which helps me to get more into rest and digest. There's a little bit more to it than that. But basically, it helps to refocus me from the emotional arousal that is, surging through my body, and to put me back into focus on what's really important here. So focusing on the bottom of your feet, beautiful tool. I don't even really fully understand why it works, but it works. Breathing is a wonderful thing to do. Taking that time, even saying to your child, I need time right now to calm down. I mentioned this in the discipline talk as well. Just being honest, I need time. So until I get back in here, that computer stays off. We'll talk about it when I get back. That's a way. If it was a computer that they weren't listening to you about, that's a way to have them not just like, okay, I just got to get mom this upset every time, and then she's going to leave and I get an extra 10 minutes on the computer. So you want to be thinking about what you're doing in that moment. If you're just really upset, just excuse yourself. I need time. Go do it. And then when you come back, you can then talk to them about it. And then you could even say, because of what just happened, now your computer is going to be gone for today. or tomorrow or whatever. And it doesn't have to be about your computer, but you get what I'm saying, right? That when you lose it, you want to model what you're going to do to regain your self-control. All right, rather than yelling at your kids. Using yelling as a tool also prematurely drains your parent power. And your parent power, if you're not familiar with it, that is kind of like your magic wand of parenting. That it's that ability to tell your child what it is you need them to do and to expect them to comply. That's what parent power kind of is in a nutshell. And right from the time your child's born, you have this power. It actually starts usually around 1.5 years old, when they're old enough to kind of be able to listen to you. When they're just a baby, you can't really use it with them, okay? But the point is that as they're getting a little bit older, you have this power over them, and this is your chance to use the power to build mutual respect with your child. So it's not about bossing them around. It's not about telling them what they have to do. It's about using that power to guide them towards appropriate behavior, to be able to be safe, to understand social etiquette as far as treating other people in ways that brings out the best in them, to feel good about themselves and stand up for themselves and to use their own voice. All that kind of guidance, we do that with our parent power. And unfortunately, if we misuse that power, if we abuse that power, if we confuse our child with our power, we will prematurely drain it. We won't build mutual respect. And then when they get to the tween stage, it's not even the teen stage, it's just the tween stage, you'll start to feel it, because that's where pushback will occur. And by the time they're teenagers, if you haven't built up the emotional or the mutual respect, you will probably experience a lot of their pushing away, which is a natural part of being a teenager. You will probably experience a lot of it directed at you, because they don't fully respect you, because you were bossing them a lot, that, just because of the treatment. So I don't expect that the kind of people that I'm attracting that are listening to my show, that are, all about being a vibrant, powerful mom, that you're doing that. But it is a great thing for you to understand that yelling, even if you only do it once in a while, it prematurely drains your parenting power. And that's something you really don't want to do if you can help it. It also leaves you with nowhere to go. And this is a pretty big problem if the tool you like to use is yelling. So maybe you ask your child to do something, they don't listen, and you right away yell at them, and you go right to that tool. Where do you go from there? Right? Now, what do you do? Do you threaten them? Do you hit them? Do you lock them in their room? Where do you go? It's a really tough spot to be. So when it comes to trying to get compliance from our kids, we really want to start with the lowest level of intensity possible. And then if we've given some thought to it, especially, which I'll talk about in a moment, we can slowly move up the ladder of intensity if needed. But that never really involves yelling, as I already told you. You can go up the ladder of intensity with what you're doing. You've made a request, you shift to a command, you move into action, you take something away, you take something away for even longer. Now that's privilege removal. That might not be your tool of choice, and that's fine. But you can see how that works, right? You're just increasing intensity, but you're doing it all calmly and consistently until you get your child to realize, oh my gosh, she means business. I better listen. Okay? So those are all problems with using yelling. So the fact it's a fear-based tool, the fact that it leaves you with nowhere to go, the fact that it drains your parent power prematurely, the fact that we're desensitizing our kids to yelling, and there's going to be times where we really want them to pay attention because it's important, like your life jacket, don't go without it. So by becoming aware of those things, it can help you to start to say, okay, so if I want to change things, how do I do this? There are a lot of different things that you can do. One of the first things that I often like to remind people is, if you're not convinced that yelling is a problem, if you are not convinced that punishment isn't guiding your child the way you would like them to, you're going to have a lot of trouble stopping yourself from yelling, because you need incentive. We all do. It's like nobody goes on, well, I shouldn't say it like that, but a person might not go on a diet until they're at a point where they feel like, okay, I have to change things. Or if your energy is really low, I've struggled with that a lot in my life, and I reach a certain point where I go, okay, enough is enough. I have to do something. I have to get my iron up, or I have to figure out how, what I'm going to do next. So we all have things that incentivize us, that help us to get things done. And one of them is knowing what kind of parent you want to be and how closely you are currently aligning with that. Because if you really want to be this kind of parent who's, let's just say, here on a scale, and right now you're kind of here, you're going to have a lot of discomfort. You're going to have a lot of guilt. You're not going to feel great about yourself. And that will come through even in your cuddle time with your kids, right? Because you know that you're being really inconsistent and you're making things so much harder than they need to be. So notice or pay attention to the big picture. Think about the kind of parent you want to be, and think about, okay, well, what about when they're adults? How do I want them to treat me? What do I want things to be like when they're a teenager? That's a tough time. It is, because they're growing, they're testing out all the stuff that they've learned from you and from other people over the years, and now they're putting it into action. And if you've built that mutual respect with them, it can still be an okay time, still challenging, and you might spend many a sleepless night wondering if they'll be okay, but it's very different from when they're actually targeting you. Sorry. When they're actually targeting you with their anger. So that's one way that you can change things. Another is to become aware of your triggers. I mentioned that at the very last of the discipline show, that when you can learn what your buttons are and protect your buttons, when you can learn the things that trigger you, and I mentioned whining as something that triggered me, well, it might be a time of day that is really hard for you, like when you get home and you got to make supper. You might need to put a sign in your kitchen that says toxic hour, come in to help or don't come in at all, something like that. Or you might assign tasks during your Sunday conversation, if it's a family meeting or whatever it is. You might actually assign tasks to the different people in your family for that mealtime, just to make it easier, so everybody understands that's not a time to push limits or to come and throw your books on the table or whatever. That is a time for everyone to pitch in. When you become aware of your own triggers, your own buttons, and you share them with other people, it becomes much easier for them to work with you. What's interesting, I remember telling my kids and my husband that I figured out, it took me a little while to get here, and this is going to sound like such a how did you not know that thing, but I didn't know how much PMS was affecting me. And I would have this sort of black cloud that would come over, and on those days, I would often feel like I was just ready to strike out and kill. And once I figured that out, I told them, I said, hey guys, I need your help on these days. I need you to back off. I need you to recognize that I need your support. And my husband was the fool who made the joke, that, oh, God, look out for scary mommy. And I said to him, do you really think this is a joke? Like, do you really feel right now is the time to turn this into a laughing thing? Because this is hurting me, I got to tell you. And so it was a communication thing. It's kind of funny. We laugh about it now, and it's no longer PMS, pass my shotgun kind of thing. But it was a real eye-opener for me, and it was one of my buttons that I had to become aware of during that time, and to actually ask for help. And then it's their choice. They don't want to help me, I can shoot them. Okay, not. I gotta be careful what I say when I'm doing recordings. Another thing that I find to be very helpful for people when it comes to yelling is to learn lots of tools to help you regain your self-control. And so basically, There's lots of things you can do, but some of the games that I teach people, I find them to be really effective, and people come back and go, you know, that really did help me. So some of the games that you might play, you might pretend you're in a movie. It's your child's job to push every button they can to be just a little jerk. And it's your job to stay absolutely perfectly calm, cool, and collected. And so if you can really buy into that, if you like acting and really can buy into that, you can even use a different name. You can even say, okay, I'm going into the role of Fiona right now, and then be Fiona. And when you're in that role, just really stick with it and be thinking that way. What it does is it stops you from feeling the emotions, from getting all, taking things personally and buying into whatever's going on. And instead, it gets you to stay objective because you've got your lines, right? You've got your part that you're supposed to play. So the movie role is often a really good one. Another one is to pretend someone you admire is watching you. I mentioned that in those discipline and punishment questions. It's a really great tool. In fact, sometimes people will take a hat and put the hat at, you know, maybe on the fridge a little bit to the side where they can see it. And from the corner of their eye, it looks like a person standing there. Or if that's too high, you could put it on a broom handle and put it there. And in your mind's eye, just pretend that really is a person that you admire, that you want to impress, that you want to show them what a calm, cool, collected parent you really are. Again, same thing. It keeps you from going right into the emotional escalation and keeps you in a more objective sort of mode. Another one is to put on your investigator's cap, become super curious. What's going on here for my child? So an investigator doesn't take things personally, doesn't buy into the emotion, but instead just goes, huh, where is this coming from? I wonder what's going on. I wonder what this child needs most right now. So it's a very much that removed scientist kind of way of looking at things. And then one other one is to actually take the time to investigate your own feelings. Why is this bothering me so much? And often for this, I suggest that people use the format of the iMessages, which I actually think I might have a card here for it. But the iMessages are basically where you say, I feel, and then you say what you're feeling because. And I guess I don't have the card here. And when you do this, it allows you to dig deeper down into how you're truly feeling. So I feel angry because I just washed this floor and now you walked across it. And then I encourage a person, you don't have to say it like that to people. You can. That's a great way to say it. There was no you. You're not putting them on the defensive. You're telling them what's going on for you. So it can be a good tool that way, but often feels very awkward. What I really like people to do is to take that information and go, so is that really what's going on here? And then they might go, well, actually, no. I mean, I knew the floor was going to get dirty anyway as soon as the dog came in. In truth, I feel like people aren't really appreciating the things I do. Like so much of the work that I do is undone before the day is even out. Like the kitchen, the dishes, the food, the dirt on the floor, the vacuuming, all that kind of stuff is often undone. And so people like don't necessarily notice it when it's all done and everything looks good. They notice it when it's undone, and it's undone all the time. So I'm not feeling supported right now. I feel like I'm not supported, and I feel underappreciated because I'm doing a lot of the house cleaning and no one else is really pitching in. And can you see how that changed the whole conversation to now sitting down with your family and going, okay, I could use some help here. I'm working full time too. Or, even if you're working full time in the home with your kids, it can even be okay, I could use your help here with this. I need you to remember to take your boots off before you come in. I need you to help me cleaning the floor or whatever it is. So it's just a way to dig down a little bit deeper to what is really going on for you. So I feel like that might be enough for today. I just really wanted to give you a few different tools. I guess one other one I should mention specifically for yelling. Okay, two, real quick. All right. The first one is if you find you're yelling to get your child to comply a lot, stop yelling completely. walk right into where they are instead of talking to them from the kitchen or wherever. Walk to where they are, put your hand on their shoulder, not a grasp. You're not, grabbing them or anything. You're just letting them know you're there. Sit down beside them on the couch, whatever, and ask them to do whatever it is you want them to do. It's time to turn off the computer and go for your bath, for example. And so when you do that, you're actually you're so close to them that now they have to answer you. They can't pretend they didn't hear you. They might not have heard you. I mean, especially if they're a little boy, they can be so totally focused in on what they're doing that they might not have even noticed. So giving them this opportunity to hear you and to answer you, and then you can say, did you hear what I'm saying? So they need to comply. There's that sense of immediacy when you're right there. An even better deal, which is the other thing I wanted to mention, is that you can give them a warning, as in not like a warning like 1, 2, 3 magic, but I mean a warning like a 5-minute thing. So 5 more minutes and the computer goes off. It's time for your bath. People appreciate having time to shift gears. Even better if you have some kind of like your phone, for example, that you can set 5 minutes and go, okay, I set 5 minutes on my phone. When it goes off, you need to turn off the computer, bring me my phone, and go for your bath. Okay. And that way you're giving them a little bit of space, and you're also giving them some responsibility for it rather than you hovering over them, because that doesn't work. And it's not if you come and put your hand on their shoulder and say, okay, time for your bath, and they go, okay, and then you sit there and then you go, like right now, and they go, okay, and you go, like, I mean, turn it off right now, because now you're hovering, you're nagging, you're not giving them a chance to shift gears. So you can say, well, I would never say when this guy dies or whatever, because that could take hours. But setting that time limit and then giving them that space, I think, is a much better way to guide them towards appropriate behavior. Okay? So that is all I'm going to share with you today on yelling. You'll notice in the online gift basket that there is a booklet about yelling, an e-booklet, and it covers all these things and way more, and gives you a bit more information about how you might stop yourself from yelling, understand why you yell, all the pieces that I covered today. So whatever you end up doing, whether you take this in or not, I would love for you to really acknowledge when you notice, like, even if you notice that you're raising your voice more, even if you start to notice your tone of voice and change that, even if you start to find that you're talking calmer, all of those things, start to pat yourself on the back. I'm trying to, there we go. Pat yourself on the back and give yourself that kudos rather than feeling like, oh man, I messed up again. I just finished yelling. Stop being so hard on yourself. Cut yourself a whole bunch of slack and give yourself lots of kudos for every little thing you do when you notice that you've done something good. Because, and good isn't the right word to use there, but when you have started to tune into something, that is awakening, and it's not easy to do. So be your number one fan, as I mentioned, be your number one supporter, and I'll be right there in the number 2 position. Finally, if you don't mind, if you enjoyed today's episode, I would love for you to share it with others. Help me spread the word, especially since this isn't a Facebook Live. It will have a lot of trouble getting traction. I would love it if you could just share it with some of your peeps if you enjoyed it. Comment, questions, give it some hearts, do whatever, just so I know I'm not just talking to a computer screen where I don't even know where to look at. All the best. I will talk to you tomorrow about sibling rivalry, how to help and really benefit from those disagreements that your kids have with other kids. Thanks.